All right, hello, welcome to Adventures in Lollygagging. We are playing One Ring Second Edition tonight, continuing our Waking of Angmar campaign that we've been playing now for a couple months, actually. We are on episode 15. We just had a very momentous episode, I think, episode 14, where we killed a boss, actually. The first one, first time that we've been kind of talking about a little bit since the very, very beginning of our campaign. This session, however, we're going to dive into some fellowship phase stuff. It's going to be a little bit more of a downtime type activity. So we'll have a little bit of relaxation, and we'll kind of start to set the direction for where we might go next. So that's really, really fun. It's also going to be Steven's first time doing the fellowship phase. This is our third one total. Steven's first, and it's also going to be our first Yule fellowship phase. So it's an extended fellowship phase that lasts a couple months. There's also various midwinter festivals, and then mechanically speaking, it adds some extra options for an undertakings for folks to take, and kind of tweaks the rules a little bit for fellowship phase. So it should be kind of fun.
Do we also turn a year older?
Yes. So all of you are now 1 year older. Oh my god, I almost slipped into it, Ashley. All of you folks are now 1 year older.
I told you.
Get a kettle grass.
I was at a nice round age, though. I don't want to be a year older.
I'm sorry.
not
We
how
could go
aging
back and
works.
kill you before. If that's what you prefer. Right before the new year.
I mean, we'll see, I guess.
Could be. All right, so before we get into all that, why don't we go ahead and just do a little round table. Introduce your characters. We'll get into what skills you picked and all that kind of stuff. We'll do that in games. So don't worry about telling us about that. Just tell us a little about your character, etc., how they're feeling after the big old victory that you had up in southeast Angmar, really. So we'll start with Long. You're up first. Tell us about Floy.
Yes, Floy, the dwarf of Durin's folk. He's a treasure hunter. Once again, another big combat. He goes down, taking no injuries this time, no wounds, but seems like he's been getting downed or like just tanking all these fights. He's pretty tired right now. So this rest that he's about to receive, it's gonna be nice to tell his dwarf folks that he's taken down Ulag or Rotag, my bad.
Yeah. And you your pony was the one that didn't get hurt, right? It was Root and Beat. Which one do you have? Is yours Root or Beat? I forget. You have Beat, and it was Root who got hurt. But both of them actually survived.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, like you could probably maybe even spend a little time on your journey back riding, Root. We'll see, something like that. But okay. And you have gone down a bunch, but to be fair, you're a tanky guy. It's very hard. You take hits that other people would probably kill other people. So there's that. Also, you are always in forward stance. So you always make it easier for me to hit you. So there is this thing called defensive stance that you could, play around with a little bit, see what happens.
I don't think I read that one.
Yeah. It's
As Melissa and I yell it at him every time.
Yeah. So just something to throw out there. And there's even just open stance where it's just like no positive, no benefit. But yeah, like every time you go into forward stance, I get an extra bonus die to hit you, right?
Yeah.
Okay, just checking. Just checking. No, I like it. You're
he
aggressive.
Also gets a bonus die though.
It's true.
So
and he's the biggest damage dealer. Yeah, he's definitely the biggest damage dealer. Yeah. And you have fancy armor as well. That's been keeping you alive. And maybe, we'll see how it goes. Maybe you might learn about some additional properties it might have. We'll see. All right, let's move on over. Let's go to Miss Gilly Kettlegrass. Ashley, tell us about Miss Kettlegrass.
My name is Gilly. I'm 35 now that, we've aged up. I am a scholar and a Bree hobbit. That's different than a Shire hobbit. Don't get them confused. As she looks aggressively at Erebon. Gilly's favorite hobbies is she likes to journal. In her book, she pretty much documents everything that we do. And yeah, she had a really kind of rough time in that whole last adventure. Everything was terrifying. She at one point fell almost into a troll cave, right in front of it. There was a troll, there were some orcs, and she was so terrified, but thankfully she managed to slip into the shadows and disappear. And yeah, so this in falling, she actually also got a shadow scar in its on her fingers, because as she was desperately clawing onto the rock to try and prevent herself from falling, it like ripped up her nails and her fingertips.
And so now every time you look at them, you just like remember that moment of near death. Like where you likely, had you not passed that stealth test, it could have gone very poorly.
Yeah.
I mean,
I
had a plan. You would probably gotten cooked and eaten, fed to trolls and stuff like that. Yeah.
My endurance is only 22. So
wow.
It wouldn't take much to.
Yeah. I mean, there was one of the lieutenants was right there, so one of the kind of more enhanced orcs.
Yep.
There's a stone troll, a couple other soldiers, and then there's a cave filled with cave trolls. So
Yep. Yeah.
It could have been really, really, really bad for you.
It would have been awful.
But you're tiny, and you took advantage of your tininess, and you got away. And I still remember afterwards, Ashley was just like, "So can we say I like saw into the cave? Like, get out of here! Get out of here! You're lucky you didn't die."
I wanted to roll. I was
really?
Like, what are the chances?
Yeah. Nah.
Not a 2, Jen. Let me flip a coin.
Hell no. That's one of those things where I always have to remind myself, don't give them a chance to roll if there is no chance for them to get it. Because what'll happen is they'll roll well, and then you're kind of forced. So like, no.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, let's move on down. We got bottom row. We got Renil. Melissa, tell us about Renil.
Yes, so Renil is our Ranger of the North champion. She also keeps getting injured. So she is currently weary and miserable. She had a severe injury lasting 5 days, which, at some point in our travels back, she's not injured anymore, but that does just keep happening to her. She was able to, I think, get pretty good use out of her snowshoes during this time that we were out and about. So that was fun. Looking forward to some wintry activities.
Indeed. I want to clarify something really quick about Aureniel. You are not Dunedain, right? Like, I know I've asked you this like 10 times, and one day I'll remember. But you didn't actually take the blood of the Dunedain thing. Like, you don't consider yourself
correct.
That. You're just, okay. All right, so you don't actually have the blood flowing through your Ranger of the North. Okay, just checking. For no reason. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
No, definitely not a new mechanic going to start coming into play for you all now, considering your actions may have finally drawn the attention of some of the greater evils of the world. And we'll talk about that later. And then finally, we got our newest member. We have Erebon, who does in fact know what defensive stance is. So Steven, tell us about Erebon in defensive stance.
I am Erebon, a child of Eru, an elf of Linden, warden as well. The group found me wandering the outskirts of Angmar and picked me up and dragged me along with them. I have a bit of a sense of melancholy most of the time, and I did not expect our mission in Angmar to go very well. The fact that we all survived and accomplished our mission, I'd say pretty successfully. Like we didn't have too many complications. A few people went down, but they were able to heal up. It was nothing life-threatening. Erebon himself did not take a wound. So he's feeling a bit more confident. His outlook on life, he's not an optimist, but he has seen that things can go the right way if you work hard and put your heart into it. So he's on a bit of an up note right now.
So what I'm hearing is that I'm going easy on you, and I need to make it more
Feel
difficult.
free to smack him down. Yeah.
That's what I hear. No, I meant
Put
the
him
whole
back
group.
to his comfort zone.
The whole group as a whole. One of you should have. Well, someone did actually die, but Reniel killed them, so a good person did die. But other than that, yeah, everyone's okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's get started. Like I said, it's going to be a lighter session, as we're mostly just going to dig kind of heavily into the fellowship phase. We like to sort of flesh it out even further than what's in the book, do little RP scenes here and there, and then we'll kind of talk about where, in character, obviously, like where we might be going next, right? So But I will take a note, make things more difficult, and try to kill somebody next time. That's what I wrote. I need a Boromir somebody. That's what's got to happen here. Got to take a Boromir. You know,
I
not a
had temporarily
Gandalf where they come back.
forgotten- Yeah, I had temporarily forgotten about the whole like killing of the dwarf herald thing. So
Oh, I
now-
wasn't gonna let you forget.
now I
Don't worry.
remember that.
Oh, it would be
Erebon
wrong
never
of
met
me.
that dwarf, so he wasn't too upset about it. That's why
Also
he's
a
on the
dwarf.
up note.
This is a dwarf. Yeah.
That's good.
And a
Well,
dwarf.
We'll balance a
Keith,
little
Keith gets it. Keith gets it. Okay, so summary. Through careful planning, some courage, help of allies that you have accrued, Thorvum and Thebe, your dwarven allies, Marimben, your ranger ally, who's certainly on the verge of, like, definitely on the precipice. She could go towards shadow. She could maybe be pulled back towards the light, you know, that type of thing. You're not really sure. You were able to finally defeat Rotag. Rotag being a figure we've known since the very beginning. His initially was known as just sort of a large and terrible orc that was leading a war band that was raiding the livestock of the villages of Coombe and Bree and Archit and Staddle around the Breelands. And that's how you all kind of came into play, with the exception of Erebon, as one of Balin, your patron, who all of you know in some fashion. He one of his mutton suppliers, Rosa Goodborough, she kind of asked for some help, and he sent you all, and you started doing this investigation. That's how we kind of got roped up into all these types of things. But during the course of that investigation, as we were trying to figure out exactly where the warband was, what was going on, you know, you started to learn about other things too, about this potential rise of activity in this old realm of Angmar. And so you journeyed north. You met Erebon along the way, freed him, actually, as he was taken prisoner by some of these evil kind of Rudour hill folk. And you journeyed across, actually over and through Mount Grom into the lands, at least on the very edge of Angmar. And that's where you confronted Rotag and his warband. You learned at some point along the way that he was not, in fact, an orc, but was, in fact, a new breed of troll called an Olog High, who was a new and improved troll, a little smarter and definitely resistant to sun, ferocious, and through that ferocity he was able to keep the war band and its various strong personalities and different tribes and factions that were within, kind of keep them at bay. They were journeying, it seems like, to Mount Gundabad, which we know is like a kind of an orc stronghold, former place of important dwarf lore and history, but has fallen to orc control for some time now. But you managed to catch them through some sabotage. You slowed their passage northeasternly, and doing some recon around the area and some strategic planning, you managed to isolate Rotag away from his lieutenants, away from his main, like, the strongest attendants, his guards and things, and you were able to take him on essentially 4v1, and you defeated him. Now, there was one casualty, and only one casualty, a dwarf named Reagan, who Rotag actually had chained, and there were reports of this creature, and most people just dismissed it as a goblin, because they looked sickly and dirty, and they obviously they didn't have the appearance of a dwarf. The beard had been kind of shaved off, and you actually had evidence prior of this group like kind of taking beards as trophies, dwarven beards as trophies. But sadly, he was killed. Aurenial didn't know any better. She took one shot as you were trying to ambush Rotag, and took out what you thought would have been his ally, and that killed him in one swift blow. However, Thorvum and Thebe kind of absolved you of any wrongdoing and said it was a mercy, and it was not something that should weigh too heavily on your conscience. Whether that does or not is obviously up to you. You got away from there once Rotag died. Infighting, you think, began occurring through some of the larger factions in the warband, so you took this opportunity to flee back, damage having been done, head of the snake chopped off, etc. You made it back to Marimbem's hideout on the southwestern side of Mount Grom. There you found the ponies Beat and Root were still alive. However, Beat was injured, attacked by some kind of wild animal. You managed to convince Marimbem to come with you back to the Breelands, maybe to see Talendale, maybe to just sort of rest as winter was fast approaching. The dwarves agreed to come as well, at least that far. They, as you know, are from some kind of dwarf colony down in Dunland, and that's likely where they'll eventually be heading. And so, yeah, and that's basically where we left off. Likely before you leave, I can't remember exactly if we left off right here or if we already did like a montage thing, but likely we would probably, I'd say let's begin with kind of like putting Regan to rest, because I just double checked some research on this to make sure I got this correct, but dwarves, when they're unable to like be buried within like a constructed tomb, it seems burning is kind of the preferred method. And so we'll say that likely before leaving Merrimbem's place, hidden up in like the Yetton Moors, likely there's some kind of service. Thorvim, Thebe say some words, Floy maybe even, and you kind of set up a pyre and sort of burn, and then we see the group kind of moving back down. The journey back is not too terrible. There's no major issues that you kind of run into along the way. The nights are still kind of disturbing through the hills of Rudour, the dark hills, the hidden hills of Rudour, as like you hear howling of a variety of things. You hear the howls of what likely are distant wargs or wolf packs that are traveling across the land. You hear those periodic sounds of like these thunderous hooves of horses and like of echoes of battle long past. None of it really seems to harm you in any way other than to give you an unsettling night of sleep. You pass by more than one silhouette of a distant dark ruin somewhere on a hilltop or in a valley of the Rudour Hills. But at long last, you do come to the sort of familiar site of Weathertop on the southern edge of the Weather Hills, and shortly thereafter, the Great East Road, and you begin to sort of march back west until you reach the familiar towns of Bree, Coombe, Staddle, Archet. And roughly 2.5 months after the three of you, not counting Erebon, left this place, you are now returning. It's been almost 3 months. Midwinter is on your heels. Snows are beginning to flourish around, and you can already see that all around the town of Bree and on the green, you can see that decorations are beginning to go up in celebration for the 6 days of Yule. So before we dive into the fellowship phase, is there anything that anyone would have done, like kind of on the journey back, or is there anything anyone wants to do, like the first thing that they do when they get back to this civilized area? Is there anything in particular? And this is before we dive into fellowship rules. Any RP moments or anything like that?
I don't recall if we did this last time, but I'm not sure if we need to persuade Erebon to come spend a bit of this Yule break with us.
You persuaded him to go to Bree with you at least. He said that he'd travel with you to the town, and then he wasn't sure what would happen after that.
So we'll at least get a night of drinking in maybe before you.
He's scared of commitment, like I said, but he's willing to go at least to town and see what's up.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that Aurelian is fairly quiet during a lot of the travel back. Kind of in her thoughts, I would say.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think the first thing Gilly would do is go home. just straight home.
Where does Gilly live exactly? Like, we've kind of danced around this a little bit. Does she live in Bree? Does she live in Coombe? Does she live in Staddle, where most of the hobbits are in the area? Where would Gilly call home?
Where is Bree in regards to Staddle?
So Bree is like the bigger town, and there's kind of a large hills and series of hills, and on kind of the certain slopes and valleys that connect to like the main city, you can find some of these smaller villages. So they're all within a very short walk of one another. Some people would even call some of these villages like suburbs, of the larger town, but
Yeah.
usually those that are actually living within the village take some level of offense at that. So
Yeah.
it's a close enough walk that you could easily like walk over to Bree within a few hours.
Yeah, because I like to think that maybe she lives like on the edge of like Staddle, closer to Bree. But yeah.
That is where probably the larger portion of hobbits in this area tend to live. Though there are some that linger about in other places as well. It's not, okay. Is it like a hobbit hole type? Is it an apartment? Do you live by yourself? Do you have a family?
So her family lives there, but she actually went and she got her own home. It's one of the like her like dad helped her like get it all set up and everything, but it's just like a little Hobbit Hill thing kind of thing.
Okay.
And she has her own space.
Okay. So you have your own space. It's very small, probably, as you're very young and you probably can't afford too much. But like, because I don't think you're not rich, right? What's your standard of living? Like just normal, right? In the middle.
Just normal, yeah.
Yeah.
Like
so
my
it's
parents
probably,
helped me pay for my
yeah.
house.
It might even
But-
be like the equivalent of like a loft over, like a garage loft near their home type of deal.
I like to think it's like the equivalent of like, you know how houses have like the like a little like guest house behind,
Yeah.
like
The
that's
granny
Like
unit.
a, like a Hesita
the
or
granny
something.
unit, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I'm on. Yeah, this makes sense. Like, it used to be like a garden shed. And they cleared it
Yeah,
out.
but like he cleared it out, made it a little bit nicer, added like a room to it.
Seinfeld cast as hobbits. What's with all these hobbits all over the place? That was a terrible Seinfeld impression, but I wasn't really.
That was horrible, but it's okay. Props for trying.
And it's weird how Erebon just dies right then. It's just boom, heart attack, dead right in front of you. That's the same. Wow, look at that. Okay.
He didn't have a strong heart. It's not hard to believe.
Yeah, we just get someone comes into Gilly's home, and it's like a fairly tall for a hobbit, slender with crazy hair, just like, as they come in, door slamming all over the place. Okay, Floyd. So you're not from Bree. You're from the Blue Mountains. We know that. You're in the Ered Luin off to the west. But you have been spending time here. What would you be doing when you first arrive at Bree? You got Thorben and Phoebe who are kind of with you here, but they're planning on going home. But what would Floyd's first thing that he does when he gets back?
You know, it's been a while. I have to stop by the farms, grab myself a glass
God
of that
dang
fresh milk.
it. You're so... Okay. Do you journey over? Do you go and talk to Rosa Goodborough, who is the one who is the friend of Balin, or do you talk to? Oh my God, what was her name? I'm looking up her name. The one who hates you.
The one that hates us. Yes.
Meadow Oldbuck is her name.
Make sure she hasn't forgotten this face.
She's the goat farmer who is this is my note. Hobbit, sheep, and goat farmer who is thoroughly unimpressed by Floy. That's what I put with my GM notes. Okay.
Floyd's always in forward. He's got to go to the person who hates him.
Okay. Always enforce this how it says. And he just kills Meadow Oldbuck and takes her home. Okay. All right. So you journey over and you purchase some goat milk, I guess, from Meadow Oldbuck, who I think the ship has sailed for the two of you ever being friends. But I'll tell you what. Let's see if at any point could you possibly have improved relationships from like just hatred to mild disgust. So
and it's
roll
been 2.5 months since we all jogged around her
That is
roll
true.
courtesy.
stable area.
Though how much you want to bet? She sees you, she's like, God damn it, if you start running.
Courtesy. Oh god.
Go ahead and roll courtesy.
All right.
I'm just curious. This is just for fun. I mean, all of it's for fun, but yeah.
Am I like weary and miserable? All that.
No, you can. I mean, you probably had on the journey home. You probably had time to rest, and it's been like a month in terms of travel time. So any wounds and stuff, everyone should be back up to full when it comes to endurance. You shouldn't have any conditions left. That's how long it takes. It takes a while to get back down from. It's about a month travel time, give or take. Okay.
I feel like
She
you're not.
sees you coming up the drive, like the kind of the gravel path that's between her home, the Goodborough farm, where Rose is kind of waving at you politely as you see like a very light snowfall has recently come. Like there's adornments on some of their fences and over their windows and over their doors here and there. And like Rosa Goodborough's like waving at you, kind of saying hi, and you're waving back. But as you turn the corner and you start heading towards like the old Brook farm, you see Meadow just comes out. Oh no, absolutely not. Get out, leave. You're not welcome here. I do not. We've had 2, almost 3 months of absolute peace. My goats, my sheep have finally stopped being distracted by you silly, silly little man. I will have none of it. Absolutely none. I will call the Bree Wardens on you for disturbing the peace if you come 2 steps closer. Get out.
I've been gone for months, and I'm just looking for a drink. That's how you welcome me.
I will recommend to you, you can go to the Coombe and a Wattle, which is a pub and a tavern and an inn, right down that way. And if you're feeling really fancy, the Prancing Pony over in Bree itself could more than happy to provide you with a beverage or 2. I, however, this is my personal home and my personal farm, and my traumatized goats and sheep from whatever you called an investigation before and all that running and distraction. No, there's absolutely not. This is not a commercial venue.
And I'll pretty much spend the entire time pestering her until she pretty much gives up.
Roll for initiative. Like, no,
Meanwhile, Gilly's parents have goats. Like, you could have come to
Right.
Gilly, but you chose to bother this poor woman.
This poor woman. Okay. Metal old book. At some point, Rosa Goodborough will probably come over and smooth things out, and we'll just sort of convince her to give you like a flagon of like warm goat's milk just to get you to shut up and leave. And that's what you get. You have a warm flagon of
Nice.
goat's milk. I don't know if that's nice. You have it, but there you go. Okay.
You can't have too many mugs.
You can't. What's Auriniel's first thing when she gets back to Bree? What does she do? It's been 2.5, 3 months. You have Marimben with you, by the way, who's probably kind of I think she's closest with you, clearly. So she's probably shadowing you to some degree and feeling great trepidation about returning to a village in a city. Like Bree's the closest thing to a city, no less, you know? So she's probably shadowing you a bit and looking very, very anxious and nervous. You've seen this woman stare down trolls and orcs without flinching, but yet as she walks through the gates of Bree and people kind of push past her, and you can see that there's like a certain level of cheer that is beginning to sort of swell up in the streets, that you can tell she's extraordinarily uncomfortable.
And Auriniel will, kind of be understanding of that and just say, I've become quite acquainted with and accustomed to our company of travelers, but I understand it can be, especially this time of year, a lot of hullabaloo around. If you'd like, I could accompany you to Talendale.
She looks around
Have
and
to
she's
tarry here for too long.
Please tell me he's not here in the streets, that he's elsewhere. I can't think he would much prefer the company of these people. She looks like she was about to say something worse, but she thinks better of it, and she says people. Okay. So is that what you do, is you hunt down Talendale and everything?
Yeah, I'll go with her.
Last you saw, he was at Oswald Breaker's home in Coombe, just outside of Coombe, I should say. And you know that he was recovering from his severe injuries that he suffered at Fornost. And so you start there, and he is still recuperating, though he is up and about and moving. He suffered a horrible fracture of the leg where it looked like he might not walk. He had problems with his back, but he's there. And when you kind of come up the crunchy road leading up to this out of the way home, knock on the door, Oswald comes, and you can see that Talendale through one of the windows is in the back, and he's sort of doing some chores and stuff to sort of pay back the kindness that Oswald's been giving him. Oswald looks at you, Ireniel, quite pleased to see you. He's sort of a curmudgeonly man himself, but as he just sees you and he doesn't see like anybody else, he doesn't see Flo, he doesn't see Gilly. He's like, oh no, is this
No. We're actually all okay. We're taking some time.
And you see like kind of a sigh kind of comes. Well, it is a pleasure to see you. You are, of course. What voice did I use for him? I think it was old. He was like old man voice, right? Wasn't that what it was? Like, you are, of course, welcome in the home. And who are you, madam? As he turns over to Marimben at this point.
Oh, well, we're actually, if we could trouble you for a spot close to your fire, that would be just wonderful. It's been such a cold walk. But I was actually, Talendil will be, I think, pleased to see.
Marimben turns around as you like fumble with the courtesy, turns around and just walks around the house as she spots Talendil in the back, like through like a window of an open door and a bedroom. And they have like a private moment of reunion. And it's like very, like you could tell it's kind of awkward. Maybe your eyes linger for a bit, but at a certain point you hear like the clearing of a throat of Oswald. Perhaps we should leave them be. They certainly have much to discuss, as do we. I want to hear everything about your adventures. I have not heard from Balin in some months. He left to find a man of great renown, but has not returned as of yet, perhaps after the winter.
Then Ireneo will, share, battle scars and highlights and, kind of everything that's...
Okay. So the two of you, like he kind of fills up like a heated mug of something, and he does kind of sit you down by the fire, and you kind of recount what happened, like everything that happened. And meanwhile, like outside as the sun's coming down, and it comes on a little bit earlier this time of year, like there's this awkward conversation as the husband and wife of Marimben and Talendil, who, they can tell just the basic sort of body language, but Oswald closes the shutters and it kind of fades away. And then Erebon, what's the first thing you do as you are now in a human/hobbit town?
Yeah,
Did you go with me?
A lot like Marimben, I would have had some hesitation about, like, as we got closer, I would have felt more of a weight with every step. I probably would have peeled off towards Staddle along with Gilly and Floy, but I would have like purposefully like shortened my stride and just taking slower, methodical steps to let them like get ahead without appearing like I'm necessarily leaving them.
Sure. And
I probably would have just started to wander the paths and walkways and roads. If I saw like a hobbit coming towards me, I probably would have looked for like the first turn I could take to go a different direction. Just trying to get lost in this little pile of houses and hills.
Yeah, I mean, you as you're like trailing Floy and Gilly, they split off at one point where Floy kind of veers towards Coombe. And at some point, the dwarves that were coming with you, Thorvum and Thebe, they bid farewell, and they tell Floy that they'll be staying for a day or two at the dwarf house, and then they'll probably be, continue their travels. And so everyone kind of splits up. And Erebon, as you're following them, Floy kind of veers off towards Coombe. Gilly kind of starts heading home. I'm sure there's some kind of communication about meeting up later at some other point. And you're able to very stealthily, without even them noticing that you just sort of split off. And yeah, like you're traveling these paths and roads. Like you're not always on like the Great Road or the Greenway or anything like that. These are smaller paths here and there. Some of them are covered in snow. Some of them have been sort of shoveled. You pass by people that are, some of them are singing and being very merry. Others are being a little bit more taciturn. But yeah, you're able to sort of journey a bit. There is also the Chetwood, which you probably kind of curve around, which is sort of a large for this area, forest off to the north that borders some of these smaller satellite villages. And you can see that like winter has come to them as well, as there's just a little bit of like white frost on some of the higher up trees and things.
Yeah, I definitely would have like ventured closer to the Chetwood just to be like a little less populated as I'm trying to steel my nerve and gain the courage to actually go into Bree.
Yeah. And there's, there are people here. There's like lumberjack outfits and stuff. So like you're not so far deep into the Chetwood where you might encounter dangers. Like you can stay.
Right. I would definitely stay on the outskirts. Just
sure.
Wherever there's like less commotion is like where I would be naturally attracted to. Yeah. And I would definitely appreciate the tranquility of like a little hobbit community and like, I know it's snowed over, but like the garden areas and the fields and the things like that.
Yeah. And there are, the lingering, there's lingering color here and there for like the annuals and things that are kind of blossoming. And like you can see that there's decoration that's happening here and there on homes of like, like different boughs and wreaths and things like that. And definitely there's merriment pretty much everywhere you see. Like there's a lot of kind of good cheer, good nature. And I think what we can do now is why don't we shift into fellowship phase? Why don't we do that? As we're home, we're back around the Breelands. Now, it's a 3-month, it is a 3-month time off. So just because this is the first thing you did when you got back doesn't mean that this is where you have to stay. So especially for like Floy and Erebon and Aurinial, who don't necessarily live here, if, conceivably you're welcome to sort of make a journey anywhere that you can get kind of there and back, or so within like about 3 months, I would say. So let's dig into the fellowship phase rules, and we'll kind of do a little bit of the mechanics, and then we'll do a little bit of RPing and stuff as we'll weave it around a little bit. So you all have 12 skill points, 12 adventuring points from your most recent adventure phase. Plus, you have an additional number of skill points equal to your wit score. And then however much you might have had left over from previous fellowship phases. And so you have those to spend. You have, obviously, the charts and things in terms of how you spend them. Skill points go towards skills. Adventuring points go towards proficiencies, your combat proficiencies, or they go towards valor and wisdom score increase. There are limitations. You can only ever take one level in a skill per adventuring phase, so you can't like move up 2 levels of a skill rank. Same thing with combat proficiencies. You can't move up like 2 levels of a combat proficiency in the same weapon. And same with wisdom and valor. You can pick either to increase valor or wisdom by 1, but you can't do both. Does that all make sense? We know our limitations and things. Okay.
Yep.
And so so we'll start there. The other thing, you can go ahead and do this now too. Convert your looted treasure. So all of you on your character sheets, you have your treasure item that we keep track of what you've been carrying. You can go ahead and convert that now, whatever you still have left, over to your actual treasure score. And if anybody moved up to a new standard of living, that does mean you actually do increase the number of useful items you can maintain and carry around. So it does actually have an effect. And so, let's start with perform updates. All right, so perform updates is sort of training and growth and all that kind of stuff. So what we like to do is, as you describe the skills, proficiencies, or valor, wisdom rewards, describe like sort of like Rocky IV montage style. Like what is it you're doing during this downtime, during this fellowship phase that helps to sort of develop this skill, or use like flashback to the previous adventuring phase to describe how something from the adventuring phase kind of led to the development of this skill or proficiency. So who would like to go first? Who's ready?
Yes.
Okay, Floy it is.
Yeah.
We'll start with Floy.
Okay.
For this development phase, I believe Floy will head back to the mountains. If that's okay.
Yes, Blue Mountains. Yeah, so the Arid Lewin off to the west. We'll say likely there's certain merchant caravans and stuff. There's a dwarf house here specifically in Bree that kind of serves in sort of like I think of it like an ambassadorial type house where any sort of traveling dwarves might stay, and likely you've already seen one group of merchants. They were coming from Dale that had a dwarf from Erebor kind of come through. So same sort of thing, except this time it's going the opposite direction, and so maybe you can like hop onto a wagon of a merchant caravan and that's heading off to the Ered Luin, and that kind of maybe passing through through the Shire even, and traveling back home. Sure.
And remind me, skill points, or what does it cost for Valor increase? Is it skill or adventure?
It's adventuring points go towards Valor increase.
Okay. So I think that's what I'm going to do.
Okay.
I want to increase that to get the effect of the mithril coat.
Okay. I figured you'd be doing something like this. All right, so your mithril coat, which you all found. Do you all remember where you found that?
Yes.
Is that in the marsh?
Yeah,
that
with
was-
the endless, or what's it called?
Unnamed.
Yeah,
The nameless thing.
nameless thing.
Okay. So the way that famous armor and weapons work in game is that they have a certain number of effects on them. 1 to 3 is the number, and you basically get the first one right off the bat, and you did with mithril armor, which means that it's a much lighter armor, so it still has the same protection scores, but the load is much lower, so it's not as heavy on you. You've you've noticed from using it for quite some time and probably making slight adjustments here and there as you've been wearing it for a couple of months now. You realize that with a couple slight adjustments of sort of straps and some of the sort of the chain loops tightening here and there, you realize that it also has taken on an effect of ancient close fitting, which is when you make a protection roll while wearing a piece of armor or helm with this quality, you add 3 to the result, or a bonus equal to your valor rating, whichever is higher. So whenever you make a roll for injury, you get a bonus of 3 or more if your valor's higher by wearing this. If you look now in the... I'm going to delete the old one. If you look in the Marvelous Artifact folder, I will go ahead and take the updated one right now. You can drag it onto your sheet.
Okay.
Nice.
So maybe because you've been on a wagon this time, maybe there are other dwarves that are on this wagon with you, and they're admiring the make of this. They make some slight adjustments, and they kind of give you some tips. Floy, I'm sure you have some level of understanding of craftsmanship, but it's not necessarily your focus in life. But some of these people who are more economists, merchants, they make things, they trade, etc. Maybe can give you some tips on how, and you get a significant number of compliments about the quality, but also you notice that they were a little bit trepidatious about letting you into their caravan, and more than one of like the 3 or 4 of them that are in this group kind of stared at you with the same kind of strange looks that you've been getting from some of the other people that you've encountered, like Mare and Ben and whatnot. And there's a little bit of concern. But ultimately, like the bond of kin, they're willing to do so, and there's more than one discussion on the journey through the Shire and the journey up the Ered Luin to your halls of how something seems odd about the armor itself. Normally, mithril has this glittering, luminescent quality to it. But your armor seems to be less interested in like the light and more interested in the shadow. It seems to sort of enhance the shadows more than it enhances the light. It's not necessarily magical unto itself, but there's something about it. Almost like you're not sure if there's a coating or a grime on it or particularly what reason. But between those two things, maybe it dawns on you in the back of your mind. Is there something to this coat that might be contributing to some of the negative experiences that you've had of late?
Okay.
All right. Okay, what? Yeah, go ahead.
Also, is combat proficiency you use skill points, or is it adventure points as well?
Adventuring points. Yeah,
Okay.
skill points are literally just skills.
I see. Okay.
Everything else is adventuring points. Okay. We'll come back and we'll figure out what you're gonna do later. Let's go to the next person. Gilly, why don't you give us one that you were doing too?
So Gilly increased her awareness. So now instead of having a 2 in it, I have a 3. And in order to do so, her mom really enjoys painting. Her mom's name is Primrose, but she goes by Pim. And so they decided to spend some time bonding together to like doing like life painting. So they'll go outside and just observe nature and paint what they see.
You say Primrose and her name is Pim, is that correct?
Her nickname, yeah, Pim.
Okay.
And
All
her
right.
maiden name was Gardner. So
Okay. Sure. And most of the landscape is sort of, it's a little drearier in some ways because of the winter. The days get darker quicker. But even still, you're not in the mountains of Angmar. There is color for the past 2.5 months as you travel through first Root Hour, which everything kind of had a darker quality to it. The sun just never quite seemed to shine fully. In Angmar, it was even worse, where it just seemed like a constant overcast of shadow. You, even more than your mother, who maybe, remarks like almost negatively about the winter landscape, you can actually see the colors in a way. Like, it's so much easier for you to see them now, like after the experiences that you've had for the last couple of months. There's still beauty in this, and it's not like she's just doing that kind of mild sort of light complain moment there.
yeah. But like her favorite painting that Gilly winds up making is of her parents' home. Because when she did come home, she didn't go straight to her apartment. She actually went to her parents' house. And that's where she's been staying. She hasn't even really gone to her own apartment.
Okay. All right. And so what skill did you increase?
Awareness.
Awareness. Okay, perfect.
Yep.
Aurenial, what do you do?
Okay, so I've got a couple different things. So one of the kind of primary concerns for Aurenial has to do with the shadow scars. Because so one of the kind of cultural pieces with rangers is the for all rangers, it's the allegiance of the Dunedain. And so
Okay.
what that means is in all fellowship phases where everyone else gets hope points back equal to their heart score, rangers only get back hope points equal to half their heart score. And so that's a slow.
Oh, wait, are you doing an undertaking right now? Or is that what you're talking about? Are you? We're on the growth part, like the skill points, awareness, that kind of
Adventuring
points. Okay, all right, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so it's a spend of adventuring points. So basically, because the hope refresh goes so slow, already having those two shadow scars is problematic. So what she is going to do is it's 5 adventuring points to remove a shadow scar. So she's going to spend 10 adventuring points to remove both current shadow scars. And so
this is a fellowship undertaking, right?
Yes.
You're doing heal scars.
Oh,
yeah,
sorry.
we're doing
we're doing adventure points. So,
okay,
yeah,
it's fine.
Okay.
That's fine.
Got it.
No, it's fine. No, I mean it's okay. I just want to make sure that I wasn't losing my mind. But yeah, you're taking the heal scars
right,
heal.
And that's how I'm spending the adventuring points.
Can you do 2? It just says choose this undertaking to focus on mending your spiritual injuries. Spend 5 adventuring points and remove 1 shadow. I read that as you can. That's all you can do, and not you spend a number of like it doesn't look like it scales. It's like I think it might just be 1 at a time.
Got it.
Yeah, that's how I took it.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm happy to hear arguments otherwise. Just that's
Yeah.
how I read it.
Okay. Okay, I'm trying to do. I still don't think I could do anything else. Okay, that's fine. So the way that kind of men and elves tend to do that is storytelling. So kind of spending time reciting poetry, telling stories, and those types of things. So Aurenial is going to find her fellow ranger acquaintance Taranath, and so she's gonna kind of leave Talendale and Maribem and Oswald, and go kind of up into kind of over towards kind of the Shire area and the kind of north a bit, and kind of find the areas that.
Okay. So you head west, like to Brandywine Bridge and everything in that direction.
Yep, and find Terraneth.
All right, so maybe like sort of the northern parts of the old forest, just off the Great East Road or something like that, where it's not too. Okay. I see what you. I see what you're saying. Not quite across the Brandywine itself, but close enough to it. Sure. And so what do you so where would you say she makes her, like, it's winter time, where would you say your friend, is it a she? I think we talked about this before. Yeah. Where would we say that Terraneth kind of takes her winter? Like, where does she like hold up in safety for the winter?
So if we can say that there's some type of kind of ruin or something that she.
Of course. Plenty of ruins across Arnor.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. So they're likely sort of, again, in that the northern parts of the old forest, not too deep, as things can get particularly peculiar once you do so, and not quite fully into the Shire itself. Likely your friend then probably has decent dealings with some of her friends. You find her. She's taken up residence within a modest ruin of what looks like some kind of old tower, kind of just on the edge of the, not quite as the Barrow Downs kind of give that eastern border on the old forest. Not quite all the way up into those hills, but near enough that she kind of has a decent view of the surroundings around, and you're able to sort of meet up. You find her. She's probably has already hunted and dried some meats and has set up shop for at least a few weeks or a month or so of time if it gets cold. And what do you talk to her about? What kind of stories do you tell?
So I do, she's a fellow ranger, so I do, kind of fill her in. I want to make sure she's kind of aware of what's happened, and sort of kind of just unloading on, kind of just everything that's happened and, kind of how this fits into the context. So I would imagine, maybe she's a little bit older, has a little bit kind of more of the broader historical perspective on, kind of all of these things that go on. And
This wasn't your elvish friend, was it? I know you had mentioned at some point having an elvish friend. Is this
no,
Terraneth?
this is ranger friend.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, would you say she's like as old as like Marimbem, which is probably like in her 40s or so? Or would you say that she's just a little bit north of you in terms of age?
I would say just a little bit north.
So just like
me.
older sibling kind of thing, as opposed to like full
exactly,
on
just a little bit older. She definitely always kind of hunkers down with plenty of alcohol, so she is kind of a fun person to hang out with in small doses.
So yes, the two of you find a tower overlooking the old forest west of the Barrow Downs. And during some of the heavier snows of midwinter, you drink yourselves and keep yourselves warm, telling stories of your time up in Angmar. And she'll tell you stories of her time shifting around the Barrow Downs and the South Downs and things that she has seen as well. All right, let's move over to Erebon. Stephen, what's a skill point purchase or adventure point purchase that Erebon took?
Only one skill point upgrade. I am boosting my Explore, and Erebon is he wouldn't stay more than a day or two in Bree. Just the staying in a tavern just doesn't feel natural to him anymore. That civilization. So he would begin to wander westward as well. It seems like that's where we're all going. But he wouldn't want to follow the road. He would want to take a circuitous path around. These are lands that he's traveled before, but it's been a long time. So he constantly has a feeling of like deja vu. Like he's meeting the child of a good friend where there's a lot of similarities, but it's not the same. there are different hills. The river curves differently than it used to. Different constructions have been made. The forest has different borders, but it's all in the same spot. The forest is the same forest. The river is the same river. And it's disconcerting in a way. And he's doing his best to refamiliarize himself with the territory, relearn the territory. And he would continue all the way to the westernmost part of the Shire, where he can climb a hill near the White Downs and see the Tower Hills. And to him, that represents the border of Linden, like the reaches of the elves. And he would spend a day or two on those hills looking at the Tower Hills, and he would not go any further before heading back east again.
And maybe some of the other things you see along the way that might also be disturbing is that ruins that you likely were familiar with are no more. You can see what looks like the scars of the earth where, groups of men, most likely men, unlikely to be hobbits, but most likely men, have come and kind of taken some of the stone of old buildings, fortresses, towers, what have you, and are kind of bringing it back in some ways to like the Breelands to repurpose it, which is not an uncommon thing either. It's
seeing fences for a farm that used to be a ruin that I knew intimately. Yeah.
It's got to feel very, very odd for sure. Okay. Cycle back around. Did anyone do any more skill and adventuring point purchases?
I did.
Okay, let's hear it, Gilly.
So Gilly also got another point in healing. So her parents, because she's been staying she's really missed her family the entire time that we were out and about. So instead of being in her apartment, she's been staying in like her childhood home. And she kind of has let the rest of the group know if anybody needs a place to stay, they can stay in her place. So like that's up for grabs if any of you need it. But her mom saw her scars on her hands, and then her two shadow scars. And upon seeing that, kind of freaked her out. So she introduced her to like a healer that she knows, and insisted that I take up like a brief apprenticeship with him. And his name is Low Oldbuck. Low. And he's a gruffle guy.
You know who it is? It is Meadow. It's Meadow Oldbuck's husband, the very Meadow Oldbuck who cannot stand Floy.
Yes. Okay.
That's who it is.
It all comes full circle.
And yeah, like when you take some of these, when you kind of go over most of what you're doing, like as part of this apprenticeship, is tending to their animals, going about and making sure they're like they're like a couple of them might be sick, or they might have a broken leg or a broken bone where you're helping to mend things like that. And when Meadow Oldbuck sees you, she shake out. No, oh goodness, Lo, what? This is one of those. This is one of the reasons why little Shelley over there has that scar, because when she was moving about while this one and her dwarven friend were running around. Who runs when you're not being chased by something? And then he was just gallivanting around, and then the poor shit tried to hop on top of the fence and climb up, but fell, nearly broke a leg, and got that horrible scar, and now you're helping her. Well,
I'm really sorry, Miss Oldbuck. I'm here to help. And I hope you can take my apology.
Roll a courtesy.
Okay.
I really like. There's a couple characters I really like. One of them is Metal Oldbuck.
Failure. God damn it.
Oh.
You can take your apology, and you can shove it. I've had enough. If it happened one time, maybe. 2 times, perhaps I could be convinced. But your friend, not 2 days past, came up to me home and then tried to just demand, as if we're some sort of tavern, milk.
milk like we have it around ready for purchase, and he wouldn't leave. To the point where, if I weren't home alone, I would have chased down a Bree Warden and had him taken away. And if it wasn't for old Rosa next door, well, I'll tell you something. I don't care how strong your dwarven friend was, I would have punched him something fierce right in the noggin. That's what I would have done.
I'm really sorry about that. I don't know why I told him I have goats. My parents have their own goats. So sorry.
I am... If anything happens to any of my animals, I will return that damage unto you tenfold. Do you hear me, young lady?
Understood. I'm here. I'm hoping you can see through my hard work and dedication to helping your animals just how sorry I am.
We'll see
And there'll be no
that.
running from me.
No running.
No running from me. You got it.
It's too slippery for these poor creatures. They might slip and fall and break something, and then someone else is going to break something, aren't they?
And she kind of gives you like a really dark look when she says that. Then she turns around and walks back inside. Meanwhile, her husband, who has just been like super quiet, head down, knows better, he kind of looks up and he's like,
Yeah, don't worry about her. She's, honestly, I think she might be crazy. Your friend is very strange, though. He really has some sort of preoccupation with our
With milk.
place.
Yeah, he really, really likes milk. And once he
Right.
learns of one place, he just doesn't really want to go anywhere else. So I do apologize.
It might be best for all of us if you had a talk with him and maybe
Yes, yeah. The next
he can get his goat milk elsewhere.
I'm moving that to the top of my priority list. Yeah.
Okay. Well, anyway, well, this one needs a teeth cleaning, so...
and then like you kind of get to sort of
Yeah.
gum disease and stuff and everything. Okay. Okay. All right. Who else has more skill and adventuring point purchases that they made?
So, Aurenial, while kind of wrapping up her time with Terranath, because we were, kind of telling stories and doing all of that. So she's going to sort of point out how kind of Aurenial was, kind of talking about like all of the like impressive things that kind of the other members of the fellowship were doing. And so she is, going to, kind of give some pointers in storytelling and song of like how to kind of get Aurenial kind of in a path where she can start to tell some good stories to go along with like all of the adventures that we're having. And so basically she's increasing her song from 0 to 1.
Okay. By kind of crafting your own? Is that kind of what's happening?
Yeah, exactly. So like, when I was telling her...
You want to give us a little bit of what that sounds like?
No, not at all.
Okay. I don't know. I think if she's not willing to share it with us, how do we know it really happened? So I don't know if you can take that skill point. I feel wrong. Okay. All right.
It's always good to get new hobbies, Aurenial. Good on you.
Yeah. Okay. Sure. No, I think that sounds fine. And so maybe there's random travelers, maybe even Erebon at some point too, who pass by like this old forest, this ruin of a kind of a watchtower here and there. Nothing, fairly modest. And, wafting down from the hills, there's just the sound of two voices just singing, about new adventures and old, sadness, but also triumph. And a couple travelers just happen to hear it. Maybe they mistake it for, the gust of a wind through the old forest trees. Maybe a few of them tell their children that are in the backs of wagons that it might be, ghosts or something. So don't stray far from the wagon. And some of them maybe just interpret it as what it is. It's probably just two people nearby. But it's a nice moment, and it probably adds to the majesty of the area in some way.
It's also the very early attempts where like everything rhymes, like every line rhymes. So it's kind of that early attempts where like
Mhm.
it's not
Floy
particularly
was
complex.
a boy.
Right.
Okay. Okay. Any Floy or Erebon? Any
Yeah.
more skill points?
Floy,
or
if you
adventure?
got to one, go ahead.
Yeah, just a quick Enhearten going up to 1.
Okay. If
Uh,
you go back to Meadow Old Book, I'm telling you, she's gonna kill you.
Oh, I think we're staying here in the mountains for a
He's
bit.
trained in Hearten Meadow.
Yeah. So
There's,
you are you make it home, right? You make it home.
Mhm.
Okay.
And I think you said there was like a festival or something that dwarves celebrate. So maybe
Right.
that's part of
So
it.
yeah, Durin's Day, which is basically New Year's for dwarves, and it's roughly around the same time. It's close enough to Yule that it's a decent overlap. Not that dwarves ever really need an excuse to celebrate, but yeah, it's like the celebration of a new year, right? Durin is like, the forefather of your people.
Yeah, so in celebrating Durin's Day, pretty much just getting rowdy, drinking with the dwarves, just buttering them up and hardening them.
Okay. Fair enough. Do you have a dwarven friend?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Would you care to share a name of this dwarven friend with us?
Oh, a name, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, that's hard. Middle Earth names. What are dwarf
How much
names?
XP, sure. Yeah.
Dwarven names are like the easiest ones, though.
Yeah,
like
I agree. I think they're
Team
pretty easy.
Gloin.
They're 1 or 2 syllables all the time. Pretty
His name's
simple.
His name's Eloy, then.
Eloy, Floy, and Eloy.
Floy.
Okay.
That's pretty good.
Alright.
That's good.
I like it. Okay, Floy and Eloy, dwarven friend. What does your dwarven friend do?
He's a craftsman. That's where I learned my craftsmanship.
Really? Okay. So like a smith, a stone cutter, mason. Like what are we thinking?
Oh, let's make him a smith.
Okay. Okay. Very interesting. All right. So what is like? How's the Enhearten coming into play here?
Let's see. Enhearten. What is that skill exactly again?
I think of Enhearten as like the idea of. I mean, I'm reducing it here, but the idea of like cheering people up, like giving people like a positive, uplifting,
Inspiring.
Okay.
inspiring. There you go. Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe he's been uninspired recently. His craftsmanship has been dull. And I'll pretty much just butter him up, like give him some ideas. Maybe all this new treasures I've seen, maybe I'll show him it. He'll get like inspired by it.
And when you show him your new mithril, he is almost speechless. Especially if you've let him kind of tinker with it a little bit here and there, and he is sort of amazed by it. Like he is specifically a smith, so he is well studied in various techniques, and he is able to tell you that this thing is of dwarven craftsmanship, undoubtedly. But specifically, it's very, very old. Very, very old. He references Beleriand. He talks about like the old sort of dwarven colonies of like Nograd and Belagost, and not quite sure exactly which one this might have come from, but this has that like literally an age or more. Like it's extraordinary in its craftsmanship. Does mention again how it seems to itself like it has all of the structural underpinnings that you would expect of mithril. Like it's whoever pieced this together was clearly an expert smith. Otherwise I would never have been able to kind of craft with mithril to begin with, but it seems to be carrying with it like there's something else to it. Like there's a darkness that just sort of seems almost smelted into. And he's kind of perplexed about how that might have found its way in there. Perhaps the smith itself was, under some curse, or perhaps the item itself was used in a way that kind of carries like the evil deed of maybe a former wearer or something like that, is sort of what he starts throwing about. And if you share with him the idea of like people having these premonitions, and he didn't have those, by the way, but he also knows you fairly well. Like he seems to almost be convinced that this is some kind of cursed item in some way. It still maintains its effectiveness, but there's something about it that is very off-putting, very strange. Trying to see if there's anything else I have for you. I don't really have anything else for that piece right now. Okay. Okay. So Erebon.
Yeah. So after I would have spent some time in the Western Shire, I would have continued east to Brandywine Bridge, and there I would have made an immediate north to head up to Fornost. Not actually to the city, but to the plains to the west of it where the battle happened. And that's a place where Erebon is still intimately familiar with. He spent a lot of time there, many, many years living in that area. And he would have basically gone back to his comfort zone in a way. And while he was there now, he would be plagued by something that he's been plagued by before, just very, very bad dreams in the area. And these aren't necessarily prophetic dreams, but these are dreams that his anxiety and stress have conjured up, where he dreams of the battle happening, of fellow elves dying, specifically his very close friend Balavan. He sees him dying constantly every single night. And these dreams always happen to Erebon when he's in this area. That stress and tension just wears on him, but he can't seem to bring himself to leave the area either. In a way, he finds some solace in the burden. But this time he has gained some wisdom, and he's going back to some old elvish methods of staying awake. And you engage in simple repetitive tasks like singing songs to yourself, repeating some lore, or even just basic crafting and mending, things like, keeping camp going. And you find a sort of elvish meditation while doing that, and he's able to avoid the dreams in this way.
Okay.
So now he has the feature elvish dreams.
Oh, fantastic. That's fantastic. And what's interesting is that, like, the dreams, as you're up here, like, the dreams are probably, as you're kind of working through this sort of mental defense, this meditation art, like, you're also getting other images that are sort of or maybe you've seen them before, or maybe they haven't been as rich before, maybe they've sort of been beyond a certain veil. And now maybe some of them are crisper, or certain things are being focused on more. Images of the fighting itself, images of a figure on a horse in a dark, in kind of dark armor, images of some kind of tribe or clan of like barbarian type warriors, and a woman leading them, and like things are kind of weaving together. Maybe other people in your party that you've been working with have mentioned this, and maybe that's what's kind of impacting it or not. But like,
and my time being captured by the hill folk as well,
right? And you're starting to get maybe they've always been there and you're just now aware of these details, or maybe that's just what's in the back of your mind, but you're like, some of these dreams or visions or experiences you're having here are crisper now because of the experiences that you've had over these past months.
Got it.
Perfect. Anybody else have more skill point, adventure point moments to narrate here?
I have an adventure point.
Okay, let's hear it.
So Gilly starts to bond with her dad by helping him kind of like process the tobacco that he has.
Do we have Gilly's dad's name? I'm sorry.
Tolman.
Okay.
And he because he's always been a smoker, and like that's why at that one point Gilly was kind of able to identify that other product was a tobacco of
Mhm.
some kind, but it was from the hill folk. So she mentions that to her dad, and that just kind of gets them talking about it. So then he starts just going on about teaching her everything that he can, and from teaching leads on to smoking. So Gilly winds up getting her own pipe that her dad helps her craft, and she has taken up the art of smoking.
Okay. Cultural virtue.
Yep.
Okay. I like how one of Ashley's little downtime activities is to get high with her dad. Like, that's great.
Yeah, yeah.
That's fantastic. Okay.
And,
It's so
like,
very
she-
Hobbit. You
yeah,
know,
It's
it's
Well, she
very,
hangs
very
out
hot.
with- yeah, and I think it shows how young she is, that the fact that like her free time she spends hanging out with her parents and
Mhm.
like her friends in the Shire.
What a
and-
nerd.
Or, you know,
Yeah.
I'm a
getting
nerd.
high
I
with
hang
my
out.
old gaffer.
Just kidding.
Yeah.
Your dad's probably like, he's like,
I'm so glad that we can do this. We've been hiding this from you. Your mother and I have been getting high for ages. And finally, we were worried. We thought you were going to be judgmental about it. But it's nice to see that a bit of travel in the world has, gotten you to see the light. It really takes the edge off.
Calms you down.
Yeah. What is does your pipe look special at all? Is there any kind of specific things you do to it? Yeah, it's totally perfectly legal in Brie. It's fine. Like, you don't gotta.
Totally legal.
Yeah.
It's like, I've called prescription.
Her nickname, like, no, or just like in general, like because her uncle made her lantern, and it's shaped like an acorn, so that was kind of just like a nature theme carved into it.
Okay. Very nice. I like it. This is fun. Okay. So you've spent some time with your mother, you've spent some time with your father. This is great. Anybody else more skill point and adventuring points to sort of narrate what happens?
Yeah, so Aurenial goes very much in the opposite direction from Gilly.
You
So
give up
Aurenial,
smoking?
had spent some time with her friend, and that has, friend that's good in small doses, that has run its course. So she is going to spend some solo ranger time. And so she is wanting to really keep an eye out on kind of being aware of her surroundings. So scan is kind of the skill that she's going to be improving, but she's definitely going to just be out, listening, watching, all of those things, working on scans skill alone. While chat says that I'm into
there's-
hardcore narcotics.
Yeah, there's great stuff happening in the Twitch chat right now. Aurenial's moved into hardcore narcotics because pipe weed just doesn't do it for her anymore. Okay. Is there like a specific area where this is happening? Like, do you start working your way back to Bree? Do you like is there, like, you say you're doing alone time, but is there like some particular place like where you would kind of is there a special place that Aurenial goes to be by herself, basically?
No, and I actually think she might go somewhere that she hasn't been before.
Okay.
To really kind of hone that like awareness of surroundings. So like what's different, what's new. So kind of not relying on like, I know this area and I can kind of turn off all the senses, but specifically, so maybe she might go a little bit more kind of south.
Okay.
Out of the old forest, just to be kind of somewhere that's just different for her.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, the Barrow Downs are kind of an interesting place. Certainly, you could kind of skirt along the edges of the hills and find more than, these old kind of tombs of kings or former folk of Arnor and everything. Argaleb's helm maybe kind of guiding you without realizing it in some fashion. You can kind of, you can almost sort of feel like the presence of them in some way, or like there's a level of reverence maybe, and maybe it's just the focus that you're doing, what you've been through, what you've recovered, what you've learned, something like that. Maybe it's just a maturation state for Aurenial too. the idea of starting to understand the great weight that you have now, and seeing things that weren't there before. Like your eyes are becoming like they're an older, more experienced person's eyes who now sees things more for what they are than so quick to just move past and find the next thing, something like that.
And I think some of this would also have come out of sort of that self-blame of like, maybe if her awareness was better, maybe if her scan was better, maybe she would have noticed that it would have been a dwarf, and maybe she could have saved him. And so like she's still kind of very much, that weighs heavy on her. And so kind of really kind of wanting to improve those skills, that maybe such a mistake wouldn't happen again in the future.
Okay, wonderful. Does the death of Reagan is like kind of lingering maybe a little bit, the idea?
Yeah, because I think the time with her friend was more of the like kind of bragging stage of like all the things that we did, and the cool kills that we got, and all of that, and kind of once that like the drinking and kind of that camaraderie like passed and she was alone again, then it was kind of going back into that like always needing to do better and be better, and this doesn't count for anything to kind of defeat these kind of negative forces that are out there. If there's kind of collateral damage along the way, that's not acceptable.
Sure. Okay, anybody else have more skill point adventuring points to narrate?
Yeah, I think I've got one more.
You got one more. All right, let's do it.
It's been a while since I got a haircut, or like looked clean at all. So going a little awe mode, get the beard trimmed, cleaned up, actually look like I'm prosperous, not just some ragged person.
I mean, you return with some level of prestige and richness as you're coming back with treasure, and so you're able to just sort of throw some things about and get okay.
Are we having like a makeover montage? Like you're coming out of the dressing room with different types of mithril on?
Your friend Eloy is there and just like kind of shaking their head a little bit as like you're standing around showing the new tunic, showing the new hairstyle, and then another shake, and there's like 10 more shakes, and then finally nodding the head up and down to realize this is the new look. This is the new look of Floy. So what is the new look of Floy? What does Floy look like when this is all said and done?
Yeah, so his beard's a bit shorter, but he's gotten braids for every like beast he's slain. So there's a story behind each braid.
Nice. Oh, I love that.
Nice.
I love that. Okay. And so some of the stories are probably ones that we've seen, like, Rotag and various others. But some are maybe others that happened leading up to our adventure, right? Before we actually see these characters get on stage. That's great, Long. I like that story behind each braid. Okay.
Oh God. Is
fantastic.
He's encroaching upon the Brad Pitt of dwarves. Better watch out.
I would think Floy, having been in the wild for so long, gruff and gross and blah, blah, takes a bath, hair's combed, trimmed, beard, beautiful braids, maybe some adornments here and there.
Do you have like a Witcher moment where you're just in like a big
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. That's totally it. Yeah. And he's just like tipping people so other people scrub him or something and wash his hair and everything. And he comes out
like
looking
DiCaprio from The Revenant going to DiCaprio in Inception.
Exactly. Yeah. This is what just happened. So I think when Floy emerges, he looks like almost a whole different person at this point. A level of someone who, when you walk, when they walk down the street or the hall, like you turn to look at them, not because what was that smell, but more of who was that man who walked past? Okay. It's really interesting how other people are doing these moments of introspection, like Evreniel and Erebon really kind of thinking about this. Gilly's spending time with her family. Floyd's like, screw that, give me a haircut. It's so good.
Gotta have some balance,
I love it.
Sad, little bit of happy.
He's a treasure hunter. It's perfect.
Yeah, it's
I love
great.
it. I think it's wonderful. Okay, any other growth moments here for skill points and adventuring points?
We need to commission Floy in the bath.
Are you guys enjoying this? I enjoy this, like hearing you guys describe this.
It's great. It's great.
I think it's great. Okay. All right. So then, as we are continuing through our fellowship phase, so we've done our reform updates. Let's go into spiritual recovery. So Because this is a Yule phase, all of you gain all of your hope back, with the exception of Iridial. Melissa, I think because it's Yule, recover half your hope. Or the 3 you normally get, whichever is higher. I just think it's like I like setting Yule aside as something special, and so even though I know you get a reduced rate, we'll make it half of your hope.
Thank you. That gives me 6 instead of 3.
Yeah. Okay. And then one of the other things about that spiritual recovery, if the adventuring phase was a positive outcome in the fight against the encroaching shadow, you get to remove some shadow points, and it's anywhere between 1 to 3. And it's up to the lore master, dependent upon how noteworthy their accomplishments were. Thus far, you guys have gotten 1 because your accomplishments were you took out a leader of a growing threat, a warband. Go ahead and remove 2 shadow points.
Ooh.
But Jeff, I only had 1 shadow point.
Go ahead and take an extra shadow point for hanging around Fornost, and now remove it. There you go.
Iridial had cashed all hers in for scars, so she doesn't have any.
Okay. Well, hey, scars are fun.
You needed
too.
to in that last fight, though.
You
Oh,
did.
I totally had to, for sure.
That last fight was balancing on a knife's edge. I'm serious. Like if
really
if
was.
Rotag got another round, I felt really good about it. I still had some hate left. I think I could have taken somebody out. And if 2 of you go down, then oh man, we're past it though. Okay, so that's spiritual recovery. Let's move on to undertakings. So it's Yule, which means each of you. This is different than normal fellowship phase. Each of you gets to choose your own. So everyone has their own fellowship undertaking, and then as the fellowship starts to come back together, then you all will choose another one. So why don't we let's do the individual ones. Does anyone know for certain what they're doing?
I sort of skipped ahead and did mine.
Yeah, so you did your heal scars Yule phase, and that you spent your 5 adventuring points to remove 1 shadow scar. So like shadow scars, like I like the idea of tying like the physical scar to like the memory of it, right? So it's like it's not just a physical scar, but that thing might trigger a memory of it, and but the scar runs deeper. It's like as much spiritual and mental as it is physical, right? So it's nice to kind of spend that time kind of identifying like those moments, like what happened, and like you can kind of look at those almost like the scene from Jaws, like identifying like where these scars histories are coming from. Okay. Who else then knows their undertaking? We've got Iridials.
Yeah, so I can do the visiting the treasury
You
undertaking.
absolutely can.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That sounds fancy. I'm gonna try
Okay.
and do that and drop off my cunning coat of mail.
So we know you've got a friend named Eloy who's a smith. Is there somebody of like within your part of the clan, within the halls of the dwarves of the Ered Luin, is there somebody there who is sort of like a clan elder, like something people would like in the way that people look up to Balin, for instance? Is there somebody of that stature to you and those within that like small family / clan of dwarves from
Yeah,
where
of course it is.
you're okay? And what is their name?
His name, yes.
You know I'm gonna ask this.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
I was thinking something like Jetty.
Okay. Jetty. Like TT or DD or
DD.
Okay. Did you just name someone Jedi?
Did I? Yeah, definitely.
All right. Tell us about God dang it. Tell us about Jetty. Oh gosh.
Oh yes, he's one of the older dwarves. He's been looking over pretty much like artifacts to the treasury for a while now, and he's most knowledgeable about it.
Mm-hmm.
He's got a bunch of gray hairs, long beard.
What are some of the other notable like artifacts that he kind of keeps watch over, or they keep on display within some kind of ceremonial hall or anything like that?
Yeah, there's a great sword.
Oh,
It's pretty special because it's known that dwarves aren't really like keen on using these giant swords, but this one has been wielded way back somehow.
Okay, so there's a great sword that was wielded by a dwarf of some renown. I like that. Okay, keep going. What's another one?
Another one.
It's hard, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Now imagine having to do that all the time, and now you know what it's like being a GM. One more.
Just keep it simple, like a shield that seems to be like unbreakable almost. It's like always in pristine condition somehow.
Okay. So yeah, unbreakable shield. I like it. Beautiful. Okay. And so what is it you're depositing into the treasury?
Yeah, so I'm just dropping off a cunning coat of mail. I'm trying to remember what that is.
That was your starting. That was your starting purchase, and you did an upgrade to it. So it should have cunning coat.
So it was upgraded.
What is?
It has just 2 load, reduced load.
Well, this treasury is part of it's for people to use in some cases, but also it's almost like a museum in other cases, like these hand-me-downs of these notable cultural artifacts. So like, what story do you tell that comes with this mail? Like, what's the story you tell of this and what happened to it and why they should care about it?
Yeah, I think the most notable is in the swamp, the marsh swamp just north of Bree, I believe. There's this troll just a mighty troll that tried to swing at me. All of a sudden I came out like unaffected because of this mail.
Okay. So maybe like they start like logging it and they record it in these large tomes with these kind of thick coverings, and Jedi is like, okay, we're gonna have to change that. Jetty is like writing out kind of logging this new entry, very appreciative, and like hearing more of your tales. Your friend Eloy is there with you, helping kind of boost up, and plus you just look so much more presentable at this point. Maybe being so young, people were skeptical about you going out on your own, such a young age, by yourself, not having any support of other dwarves or any particular purpose in mind, and you come back and dressed in some special kind of mithril, which again, you're getting, some of the elders can kind of confirm what Eloy has said. It feels like there's something to that if you want to get, if you want to ensure that it doesn't betray you at some point, you would need to perhaps, find ways to absolve yourself of it, or absolve the item itself of its sort of dark history. And they tell you that a few things. They tell you that if Eloy is correct, and they do believe him to be, that it goes back as far as it does, that it stems to a very dark time in the relationship of dwarves and elves, during which dwarves and elves west of where you're at in sort of the Blue Mountains, before kind of the breaking of the world and Balerion and the sinking, that there was sort of kinslaying, but not kinslaying, that's not the right word for it, but there's battle between the two. And obviously the dwarves are going to tell you the story from their perspective with a bit of bias, but perhaps if you talk to Erebon or some of the other elves of Linden here and there, they might tell you something else. And so it's possible that it might stem back and have been tainted by some of those battles in some way, especially if it's of that age, if it's of that origin in terms of craftsmanship. And as much as it pains them to say, perhaps seeking out an elf of great wisdom and age could perhaps lend more insight into what it might be specifically. No, we're not naming him Jetski, Erebon. We're not naming him Jetski.
Just throwing it out there as an option.
Yeah, Architect, he's like,
we don't want Jedi, obviously.
I sense a disturbance in his. Yeah, it's terrible. We got to move it on. We'll figure it out. It's gonna be something like that. Jedediah. Oh, okay. Now, and that also means that mechanically speaking, you get to unlock the final of the 3 effects that this thing has.
Oh boy.
As Eloy has spent some time looking at this, and as some of the elder folks like Jetty here have gone through it, it even more even more so, they're kind of certain of its history, certain of its origins, certain that it likely was involved in some of these horrible battles between elves and dwarves, through the greed and misunderstanding and just suspicion of each other. They start to notice that while there is a darkness to it that almost seems magical in some way, or there's also just a griminess to it. It's been sitting within like a sunken swamp for quite some time. And with a little bit of effort and polishing by Eloy, runes are discovered on some of the chains. And it is rune-scored armor. When you make a protection roll, while wearing a rune-scored armor, you ignore the effects of being miserable or weary.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah. So it really, really helps with protection rolls between ancient close fitting and rune scored armor. Let me go ahead and I'll open that up for you in a second.
That means that Floyd can carry all the treasure he wants, and it doesn't matter if he's weary.
I figured he would love this. At the same time,
OP.
it's cursed. So I figured,
This is definitely
who
not
better to give an awesome item that's totally cursed to than Long? Long's the perfect person. I'll take it. That's fine. Someone said before in chat, like, man, he's going to feel real bad when they tell him we have to get rid of it. There's no way Long's getting rid of this. Do you know him? No way he's getting rid of this.
That was me saying, like, this is not
Yeah.
going to be a fun conversation. We try to say, like, this could be problematic.
Yeah.
It's free, but it's cursed. You're telling me it's free.
Right.
That's all he hears. Doesn't hear the second part. Curse, schmurse. All right, so...
Treasure?
all right, it's updated now if you want to drag over the new version. It has all three of the effects.
That's rad.
Okay.
Mithril.
Okay, Mithril. You guys have gotten extraordinarily fortunate on the treasure rolls. Every time I've done treasure rolls, basically you've gotten some kind of magical item. 3 of those times, well, I don't want to spoil it, but obviously one of those times a cursed item rolled up. But it's still a magical item, but likely it would need some kind of something to kind of cleanse it of its dark past. But at least you know something to do. Like you have something that you could potentially
I
figure
just
out.
heard that 3 of those items are cursed. 3 of those items. Oh, I don't want to spoil. 1 of those items is cursed. That's why I'm not taking any magic items. I'm fine being item free.
You're gonna have him.
The
You're gonna look in
exact
your
opposite of
bag
Floy.
and-
Everything
there's a
is
cup.
just
It's
fine.
fine.
Everything is fine. All right. Let's see. Let's go ahead and switch the music up slightly. Who would like to go next? For your personal undertaking.
For my personal undertaking, Gilly's just gonna study pondered, storied, and figured maps.
Oh, okay.
So I figured maybe she'll go up to like Oswald Breaker.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
get some studying in because you said she could use his library.
I did forget to
Anytime.
ask him about the letter also.
Yes, and he does confirm that he did receive it. That the merchants that you met along the road, they did in fact provide. They did do what they said they would do. I think their name was Ingvar and I can't remember the other. There were 2 of them.
Where's my notes?
And Marin.
Ingvar and Marin.
Yeah.
They did in fact deliver your message, which was the last he actually heard of you. And they were growing kind of concerned, especially since you guys took a whole month effectively staying to recuperate Floy. So they probably were getting very, very nervous at a certain point. But yeah, when you go to see him, he's quite pleased to see you. And he is not a man who is known for his kindness, because he's kind of a curmudgeonly old widow, in fact. I apparently have a lot of those in game. Melissa, look out. But he, he's more than happy to extend his library to you. He has the most extensive library in these parts anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. So effectively what this is going to give you is bonus, you're going to get that journey phase bonus. So whenever you would do, it's actually during the next adventuring phase, whenever you do any kind of event resolution, you get a +1 to all the feat rolls. and the higher you roll on those event resolution rolls, the better the event. So it means the likelihood of you having more positive encounters and finding shortcuts and things like that is higher than having negative events.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there any particular part of the world that you know of that you would be wanting to study more than others?
Gilly feels like more like anything more kind of like north because of Karn Doom and all of the stuff around that. She kind of feels like maybe that'll be like the next thing we might move towards to investigate.
Yeah. Maybe you start looking into more Fornost and North Downs. He has a few bits on Anuminus and the hills of Evendim, but not as much as he would like, of course. But he does have some. He explains that like the capital of like the northern kingdoms of men before it was Fornost was Anuminus, and eventually that was shifted. So he kind of gives you like a brief history lesson. He kind of shows you like the northern parts of the like where the area of the Shire is marked off, where the Northmoors are, the lake itself. Anuminus, just like Fornost, is like a ruin effectively, and what little he has. It's been years since he's journeyed anywhere himself. So how up to date these maps are, it's hard to say. He has the ear and the attention of many a ranger like Talendale and Marimbem and others who update him when they can. But it's never perfect.
She'll also take the time to like help create a new map with him of like the path that they took up towards Mount Grom and the things that they discovered along the way. So like the Hillfolk area that we found.
Nadeel's homestead, a friendly homestead, yeah.
Marks it as friendly, but caution.
Yeah, caution, friendly. The valley where the ruin was and the nameless thing.
Yep.
Is something you could probably put on there. And maybe even on the way back, you saw many silhouettes of ruins and things here and there. You guys were just wanted to get the hell out of there at that point.
What she marks in Mount Grom of like the troll caves and the whole battle area of where the orcs and stuff were.
So part of it's like making the map, but part of it's like journaling and giving like a key and description of things here and there. Yeah. Excellent. Okay. Anybody else? Undertaking. What's your personal?
That just leaves me.
Yeah. Let's do it.
The final part of my journey then would be to head back south. And I would be, again, not looking for civilization, but looking to be on the path that the elves travel between the Grey Havens and Rivendell. And I want to gather rumors.
Indeed.
I would try to find a cave or ruin or something near the path that would provide some sort of shelter, because I plan on being there for a period of time.
Okay.
And I would specifically try to approach elves without necessarily revealing a lot about myself. Looking for information about Balavan, putting you on the spot.
Okay. So Balavan is your friend who fell in the Battle of Fornost, right?
I don't know if he fell. I don't know anything about what happened after that battle. Okay. So I'm curious if...
So he could be living.
If he's alive, if he
Jeff's
sailed
rolling
the
right
seas,
now.
if he's... Yeah.
I just rolled to...
Like I said, I'm putting you on the spot.
I now know. Okay. All right. So I can give you at least one, but I'll tell you what. I'll give you like 2.5. Since you specifically asked about an elf by the name of Balavan. So you do, in fact, meet some groups of elves, some of whom seem to be taking the final trip to the Grey Havens to get on the boats and sail west. Others that are just travelers. You meet even some hobbit folk and merchants, even dwarven merchants that come by, passing through along the road. So it's not, you do meet every couple of days or so during your time here. You do see travelers, some of whom you can tell from a distance that you don't want to speak with. They seem more of the of kind of the ruffian type, and others look, more receptive to conversation. The elvish groups that you meet tell you a few things. They mention Kurdan the shipwright, and how at the Great Port of Mithond, at the Greyhaven specifically, you know that apparently there's rumors of him kind of been very troubled of late, and that he has actually sent his herald Galdor out, Galdor of the Havens, because rumors have come to him of something about kind of adventurers or fighting or activity at the ruins of Fornost, and Kurdan himself having been at the battle, and so he has sort of sent his herald out to some of the local areas, trying to identify like who or what happened here, and the rumors is that there's just something that has been troubling him greatly, and normally he is a very steady individual. In terms of Balavan, the name is bantered about a bit here and there. I'll tell you what.
I wouldn't hold out much hope, because Balavan would be in the Grey Havens, and then most of the travel happens from Rivendell to the Grey Havens.
Right.
So whether they actually know or not.
Roll a courtesy test.
I am fantastic at courtesy.
We do also.
I say
have
that about you all the
3
time.
D6s if you want any.
It's
No,
totally
I'm
not
good.
going to help him.
That's
You have
pretty
no-
much on par for Erebon when it comes to dealing with other elves.
All you get about the name Balavan is they seem a little, that you don't really meet anyone with any specific knowledge, but the name Balavan does strike a memory here or there. No one is too certain, but as far as they're aware, he hasn't fallen at the Battle of Fornost. Where he is now is uncertain, and whether or not he has since taken the ships is unknown. But you do perhaps run across somebody who is aware of the name and has seen them at some point in the time, in times in the past, 1,000+ years since the battle itself. So you, at the very least, have that knowledge. Whether they are still here is a totally different question.
It does give me a little flicker of hope, but I take care not to hope too strongly. And of course, I would thank them for their time and then leave as soon as I could exit the situation.
And that'll be that's half a rumor, yeah. And then here's the other rumor you get is you have been hanging around this area, so it makes sense that you would learn this at some point, especially if you're specifically listening to this. And maybe this is even the merch. So you come across a sort of, this is late winter at this point. It's been like you've been at this for a while, traveling around here and there, and you run across a group of merchants, perhaps even the one, these are dwarven merchants that are kind of coming through the Shire, and maybe Floy might in fact be on this wagon. I don't know. Would that be fair, Floy? Would you be returning at some point?
Yeah, I'd be returning at some point.
And so maybe it's just the sheer happiness of fate. It's been a couple
Not
months
that I would
since-
recognize him.
That's actually very fair, as maybe you don't immediately notice him. But Floy, you recognize Erebon, of course, the morose, very gloomy elf that you have met.
Our emo boy.
Never seen
emo.
a sadder elf.
But at some point, Floy, you probably just, again, same thing before. It's just like hitching a ride. It's safer to travel in groups when possible. And you've been traveling with these merchants who stop for some time to do some business in the Shire, and specifically maybe even you heard some of these as well, Floy. There are these rumors out of North Farding in the Shire, which is sort of the northern parts of the Shire itself. And maybe it struck a chord with you, Floy, and Erebon now as well, of during the winter, apparently some hobbits saw, or at least you're not sure if they're stories, you're not sure if it's true, you're not sure if it's just children who were kind of playing up towards the northern parts of the Shire, towards the North Moors and everything. They tell stories of apparently some strange folk that were kind of crossing the frozen Lake Evendim, because it's in the winter months the lake freezes, but otherwise the lake itself, which flooded years back during the fell winter, and kind of the waters rose and parts of the city of Anomenas sort of sunk beneath the water itself. But they saw groups of very strange people, well equipped to handle the cold, larger, more sort of robust and kind of powerful, and like the children of the hobbits were kind of telling tales about them, and even doing like these little makeshift plays in the markets and things, and that they crossed the lake themselves, and likely the rumor is that there's all manner of treasure and artifacts of power and within the old capital of the North Kingdom of Men. And so that's the other rumor you hear. And Floy, you can get in on that one too, basically. So Curdin the shipwright.
You're welcome, Floy.
Yeah, Curdin the shipwright, very troubled, and is specifically sending out his herald looking for people who know information about what happened at Fornost. And also there apparently were people during the winter months traveling across the frozen Lake Evendim and possibly into the ruins of the great city of Anomenas. Okay. Is it everyone did their personal, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so then next step. So we've done undertaking options. At a certain point, all of you make it back to the Breelands. Erebon, Floy, you travel perhaps for a few days together. Maybe even Iriniel comes down from her perch on the mountains at a time that somewhat coincides with this merchant caravan that's coming. And again, travel in groups is always safer. And so maybe that's where the three of you at some point over the course of maybe a week's worth of travel, one after the other, as people come and go and split off into these smaller villages along the Great East Road between Bree and Brandywine Bridge, the three of you come back together and journey into Bree itself and then over to Stottle, where I would say at least one or two of you know the home of Gilly, and you're able to once again kind of come together, and you're lingering around, and you have one more fellowship undertaking that all of you can agree to take on your own. Like, this is a joint decision, and you have to choose between one of four options. So and they all correspond to your callings. So as a treasure hunter, Floy, you could pick. The group could pick the study magical items. As a scholar, you could pick study maps, which would give you an additional bonus. You already have the +1. This would potentially stack and give you +2. Iriniel, as a champion, you bring the write a song, so you could potentially write a song, and there's different options of what that song could be. Mm-hmm. And then Erebon would give rumors. So one of those four, what would you all choose?
That is a good question. Upon seeing Floy, Iriniel is going to want to do some bathing because the entirety of Yule so far has been kind of out and about.
Yeah, of course.
Apparently, Erebon needs a bath as well.
You never mentioned that you bathed, so I'm assuming you didn't. That's the rule now. If you don't say you bathed, you didn't bathe.
I also did not pee the entire winter.
That's fair too. Yeah. You meditated and it went away. Oh god, that's one of my favorite
Doesn't
commercials.
have to worry about it.
My body runs at peak efficiency. I have zero waste.
I don't know if you guys have looked into write a song, but that seems pretty useful.
Because basically it gives us advantages, either a walking song, a song of victory, or lay, which is either journey, combat, or council benefits.
Yeah.
I did look into that and I almost chose it, but then the lists of all the songs were like happy and positive things, and I'm like, Erebon wouldn't write those.
Are there any other magical items that we don't know what they do besides the armband?
Just the armband. That's the only one you have.
Yeah, because we totally.
Besides the
learned-
armband. Okay, listen. This isn't D&D 5th edition. You don't all have 3 attunement slots and stuff. Like, it's not quite that much. Hey, Stinkfoot. Yes, that's our favorite yellow sign emote.
Yes. But it's heroes succeeding in the role ignore the effects of being weary for the length of the heroic venture. So singing a song in combat is considered a secondary action. So like times where all of us have been weary during combat, we're just like we're getting wrecked. That's an option to kind of help deal with that.
I mean, Aurelian now has 1 point in the song skill. So.
Yeah. That's just
I have
a
2 points
secondary
in song.
thing. Oh, there you go.
Hold
Yeah, I
on
have
out.
1. But
yeah,
yeah,
let's try
I'd
this
be-
write a song thing. And
Yeah, I'd be down for strengthen friendship or write a song
I'm
or
fine with
study
that.
the magical item.
Erebon can provide the tune, if not the lyrics.
Yeah, we can't do strengthen fellowship because this one is specific to our callings. So that's
Oh
like
yeah, my
the
bad.
general one.
Yeah.
It's like we're writing a song.
I love that Erebon is the
That's
backup
funny.
bass player for the Cure. Yep.
There you go,
That's,
there you go.
That's perfect. That's very accurate. Okay, so you guys can choose between lay. So you said there's one you couldn't take because you've already done it, or
Oh no,
There's
just
lay,
the
which-
strengthen fellowship wasn't an option.
okay. So there's lay for councils. So you have to choose between the different types of songs. There's lay, which is councils. A player hero creates a short narrative poem, particularly appropriate to narrate heroic deeds and meant to be recited or sung at gatherings. You could do Song of Victory, which is combat. Warriors sing stirring songs in combat to lift their spirit and renew their lust for battle. Or the Walking Song, which is for journey. The travelers trudging along the final hours of a long day of traveling may find it helpful to hum a merry song, especially when they are drawing near to their destination. So, yeah. Is there a preference?
I would lean towards combat or journey.
Yeah, and I was
I agree.
leaning council or combat. How about you, Floy?
of course, combat.
Okay.
All right.
That's
Sounds
3
like
for
we're decided.
Okay. Okay, so it sounds
Yep.
It sounds like combat. Okay. All right. So it does say that the player is encouraged to come up with a song title or its lyrics. For example, taking inspiration from events that occur to the company or focusing on one or more player heroes. We're at our time, so we're going to be breaking here in a minute. For next week, your homework, I want everyone to come back with a song title and like maybe one lyric, and then we'll vote on which one of those song titles are the best, and we'll see if we can kind of combine them or something like that. We'll figure
Will
out.
do.
Everyone does. That's so you're responsible for that for next week. Okay, so then before we break, as we're about to break, we have 2 rumors that you all have. Is there one in particular that kind of catches your attention that you're going to want to follow up on, or is there something else that has the attention of the fellowship that you would rather do?
2 rumors being Balvin and this lake. thing.
Well, Balavan is more of a
Bearden's
personal rumor.
Herald,
Okay.
Yeah.
the treasure, Lake Evendom, I believe it is. And then also, I was having dreams of the hill folk, and I assume they're still a threat as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that ties in with the frozen lake one because it sounds like they're hill folk that they're describing. So I'm interested in that one.
I would be interested in that.
Okay. Is that okay with Floy and Aurelian?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to put that down as likely the next path we're taking so I can kind of get some extra prep work ahead of time. And that's what we'll kind of go. So we'll end then tonight with you all sort of the winter has broken and you all have kind of returned together, shared your experiences that you feel like sharing and kind of keep the secrets that you feel like keeping. You kind of have a plan to perhaps continue to look into the hill folk and see whether this rumor out of the Shire about strange folk crossing the frozen lake of Evendim is at all connected. And perhaps you'll do some research into it, maybe journey there and dig into it some more. Okay.
In chat,
was
the
like-
question is, do the hill folk have snowshoes?
Oh, I don't know. You're gonna have to
We'll have to find out. Tune in next week.
tune in next week. Oh gosh. Snowshoes. Look what you've done, Melissa. Okay. So yeah, we're gonna end it there. Nice. That was fun. I enjoyed it. I hope other people
enjoyed it
enjoy
too.
that.
Yeah, yeah.
I enjoyed digging
Always
into
like
backstories a
backstory
bit.
downtime.
Yeah, I like
Downtime
the
stuff.
character building.
At some
Gilly
point, I would
getting
like.
high with her dad.
Yeah. I like getting high with my dad. Okay, let's just be real.
At some point, we should do like. I think we should do some cool like little flashback stuff too to like
That could be
Erebon.
cool.
Erebon's so old, like where he's been all this time. Floyd, Gilly, Reniel, how you all met, how you met Balin, that kind of thing. Like we could do little bits and pieces like that. Little what's it called? Like Blades in the Dark flashbacks here and there to sort of help flavor certain moments, things like that. Okay. Before we get going, let's see some future plugs. When are we playing Darkest House next? There, Steven?
A week from today, that would be the 9th.
Yeah. We left on a little bit of a cliffhanger.
Am I
Yeah, we
dead in
still
this
haven't-
one? Tune in.
We'll find
next
out.
Week
Tune in
to
next
find
week.
out.
Yeah. Darkest House, pretty fun game. It's like a haunted house, surrealist horror, Monty Cook games.
Monty Cook Games. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And
Yeah.
we're
Steven likes to make me cry.
ready to. You cry because you're a great actor. It's not because of
No.
me.
And I have just gone crazy. I mean, there's no
You're
mechanical
wearing
reason.
A
to do it.
lovely dress.
It's a lovely dress. I feel very
Yeah.
good
It's a
in it.
beautiful dress. It
Gorgeous.
looks great on you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Makes me happy. As for us, Mondays, next time we'll be streaming. You can catch Melissa and myself as we're playing some Deadlands. So come back for that. Next Friday, we're going back to Traveler. We just started up Traveler. We had our first proper session yesterday. Last week, we did some character gen. You can catch it on our YouTube channel as well. We'll have that up pretty quick. But we'll be
That was
back
fun.
with that on Friday. Yeah. I like how we have like very different games. Like we have like
Yeah.
some weird West horror. We've got like Traveler, which is space sci-fi. And then we've got Lord of the Rings stuff here, which is pretty great. And then next Saturday, we'll be back for more Wondering. Thank you for everyone who hung out, chatted with us, drew out some ideas, drew out some bits. We really do appreciate it. Y'all are great.
Yes.
For those of you who are watching this on YouTube, we really appreciate that too. Follow the channel, whether you're following Twitch or whether you're following, YouTube or both, it would be even better. We really do appreciate it. If you want to hang out for a moment, we'll find you somebody else to continue your Saturday, probably I would say evening for most, to continue watching some role-playing games. Looks like we've got some friends over at, I think Dragons in the Dining Room is running right now. So hang tight. The raid will pop up in a second. Follow it, and we'll catch you next time. So good night, everybody.
Bye.
Later. Bye.